Hello and welcome to this session. Today what we are going to be doing is taking a look at what dynamic markets are. We'll also have a look at one of the main dynamic markets of online retailing. Then we'll take a look at how do markets begin to change, and then how can a business adapt and embrace change. But to start off with, what do we mean by a dynamic market? Well, essentially all dynamic markets are is just markets that are characterized by constant change. So businesses will want to consider how quickly is the market changing. But it is important that a business does try to adapt to different changes, and it is important for their survival. More on this a little bit shortly. Now, it is also clear that not all markets will be dynamic markets. So here are examples of some of the main dynamic markets out there. We've got artificial intelligence. We know this is changing and evolving on a daily basis. Electric vehicles, because obviously the changes in legislation have changed the competitive landscape to make electric vehicles a lot more popular. And also we've got e-commerce and online retailing, because we've seen this grown quite a lot. Let's break down what we mean by online retailing. So we've just covered what we mean by a dynamic market. As I said, let's take a look at what we mean by our online retailing. Now, online retailing, this has grown significantly over recent years. And this has mainly come down to the rise of e-commerce. Now, e-commerce, all that means is that when we buy and sell goods and services over the internet. So as I said, a popular branch of online retailing will be e-commerce. Now, with the rise of e-commerce, a lot of businesses, well, traditional businesses, have been put under threat. For example, think of your travel agencies. So we find that businesses, they are beginning to operate more online, or at least having a dual operation. But there are businesses who have made the most out of the growth of e-commerce. One of those companies are Amazon. Now, the reason Amazon is so popular is due to the process element of their marketing mix. It is incredibly easy to purchase items from Amazon and have them delivered to your front door. It's allowed also producers such as Nike, for example, to start selling direct to customers. Because before, with their distribution channels, they mainly sold through, traditional retailers, Sports Direct, JD, and so on. But because we've now seen the online growth of online retailing and e-commerce, we've now seen that Nike, these producers, have been able to set up their websites and sell directly to customers. So what are some of the advantages and disadvantages of a business using e-commerce? Well, to start off with, the best benefit of e-commerce, I believe, is that businesses now have the ability to sell anywhere around the globe. Because traditional businesses, when we have in-person locations, you're really limiting your location or your business parameter to 10 to 20 miles. Realistically, a customer isn't going to drive 30 miles just to your shop. But when we look at online, we now have the potential to sell to the entirety of the UK. And as well, by selling products online, you may be able to reduce some of your fixed costs and operational expenses, such as rent and staffing, because you don't need to obviously employ people to operate and run the stores. And of course, you don't need to pay rent for the store itself. You also have the ability to sell your products 24/7. Whereas if you are selling in person, the only time you can realistically get sales is when the shop is open. It also provides a lot of convenience for your customers. They're able to shop from literally anywhere, from their beds, from their walking around, and also as well, you also have a wider range of products available. Because when you're in person, you can only sell the products that you have in the storeroom, whereas online, any products that you have in any of the storerooms across the UK, that is all the products that you can be selling. And you also have the ability to collect data. So for example, you're able to track where the data is coming from. Obviously, people sign up, they sign up with their first name, last name, email address, and you can start to pick up a little bit more information about the customers, about their buying behaviors. And depending on what their buying behavior is, you can then look at starting targeted marketing. For example, if a customer hasn't bought from you in 30 to 60 days, you can then send them down an email marketing campaign to try and re-engage that customer. However, there are certain drawbacks when it does come to e-commerce. I think the main disadvantage is the lack of physical interaction and potential lack of trust. You know, when you go buy clothes, for example, it's great when you can try them on, you know exactly what you're getting. Versus when you buy clothes online, it's always going to be the sense that it didn't look how it did in photos, it doesn't fit me the right way. So obviously we have that limitation. Also as well, you kind of trust the business more when you're in there in person, because there are a lot of scam websites at the moment and businesses just trying to take your data. And as well, because there is a greater range of customers that you can sell to, there will also be a greater variety of different businesses who also are using e-commerce and online shopping. So the level of competition will begin to rise, more competition out there. And as well, most competition will obviously be trying to focus on what we call SEO marketing, which essentially is how you rank on Google. The best type of businesses will be the normal big businesses out there who can invest the most in this marketing strategy. And you also find that it will depend on who you're selling to, whether e-commerce is the right way to go. The reason I say this is because when we think of the elderly generation, they don't necessarily like purchasing and buying stuff online because they weren't really brought up with that. So if you are trying to segment them, then potentially they might not be wanting to buy those products online. You also run the issues of potential data glitches and data breaches. And also when this happens, you can get fined a lot of money because a lot of the data that you had on people and customers is then obviously breached and then sent out to obviously these scam websites, which then obviously costs a lot of money for the business. And of course, if businesses are going to be selling online, you have to think of, well, how is the product going to be delivered to them? That is your responsibility, and it will cost money to get that set up. The next thing that we're going to take a look into is how do markets actually change? Now, markets will change in a couple different ways. First of all, we can look at the size of the market. The market may grow, for example. Then we've got to look at potentially new markets coming about from levels of innovation, for example, artificial intelligence. And as well, we've got to look about how the nature of the market changes. Now, these are some of the main factors that will contribute to a market changing. For example, we've got technological advancements. So innovation, as we've seen, artificial intelligence over these recent years, this has caused new markets to obviously come about and also markets to change quite drastically. Customer behaviors and social trends will also change a market, potentially increasing or decreasing the market size and changing the nature of the market itself and how it operates. Economic conditions is also going to be massive. Think about whether we're in a growing economy, the GDP per capita is growing, so people's general income is also increasing. And when we normally see that, more people tend to spend on luxuries. But vice versa, when we see a decline in GDP per capita, a level of income begins to go down, well then luxury markets may begin to decline in size. We've also got legal and regulatory changes, so think of the new legislation at the moment that car manufacturers are facing with the production of petrol and diesel vehicles being stopped by around 2030 to 2050, meaning that a lot of these companies are now shifting to these electric cars being produced. And finally, we also can look at globalization, the interconnectedness of countries around the world. Once again, we'll cover globalization a lot later on. But when we look at globalization, it means that now we're not just competing with the companies in our country, we're competing with the companies across the entire globe. The last thing now we want to take a look at is how can businesses begin to adapt to change. Now, businesses that adapt to change, they are going to be more likely to survive. And I'm going to give you some examples of companies who definitely did not adapt to change. First of all, we've got BlackBerry. If any of you are old enough to even remember what Blackberries are, essentially Blackberries are mobile phones, but they failed to innovate in response to a touchscreen smartphone that came from Apple, which led to a sharp decline in market share. Toys R Us, they struggled to compete with online retailers and adapting to changing shopping habits because, once again, they stayed in person, and of course the online retailers such as Amazon began to take over. And lastly, we've got Blockbuster, who they failed to adapt to the rise of digital streaming services like Netflix because they were stuck in their old ways. They just wanted to sell DVDs and CDs, but now we know that online streaming has taken over. So, how can a business adapt to change, and how can we avoid ending up like BlackBerry, Toys R Us and Blockbuster? Well, there's a couple things. First of all, it has to depend on the culture that you have. Because change is inevitable, you must embrace it. You must not be in this mentality of, well, we've done it this way, it's worked for us in the past. That doesn't work. You have to embrace change. You have to focus on investing in innovation to keep up with the trends in the market. And of course, we have to know what's going on in the market. We have to know what customer trends are. So conducting market research, learning about what customer needs and wants will be once again really important. We also have to adopt once again, as I said, this flexible business culture. That we're not just stuck in our old ways, that we are willing to embrace this change. And as well, we also need to try and diversify our product offerings by including new products in our product portfolio. Because this then begins to mitigate risks of those other products going out of date, obsolete, and then eventually into the decline phase of their product life cycle. So if we have lots of different products and we are innovating, then we focus on the ones that are obviously working with change. And as well, can we begin to form strategic partnerships? So can we start to work with other innovative businesses, learn from them, and then obviously include those innovations within our products and services? Thank you so much for watching this session on dynamic markets. I'll see you in the next one.